Stanley at School. Written by Linda Bailey. Illustrated by Bill Sylvan. Stanley knew he wasn't supposed to go into the school. School was for kids. Dogs had to stay outside. But the school was right there on Stanley's street. Every morning, the kids walked past his yard to go in. Every afternoon, they walked past again to go home. And every day, Stanley got more and more curious. What did the kids do in that school all day? He asked his friends at the dog park.
School? Said Alice in Dog Talk. Is that where they go? I'd like to see school,
said Rusty.
I'd like to sniff it,
barked Gassy Jack. So the very next day, they all snuck out of their yards. The school looked different close up.
What big stairs?
Said Nusty.
What big doors?
Said Gassy Jack.
What do we do now?
Asked Alice. But she already knew the answer. All the dogs knew they had to wait outside.
Don't you ever get tired of waiting?
Asked Stanley.
Wait outside the library. Wait outside the coffee shop. Wait outside the bakery.
And that's when Stanley got an idea. A big idea. A bold idea. An idea so daring it made his fur stand up.
Why don't we go inside?
He said. The other dog twitched and alarmed.
Inside the school?
Squeaked Nasty.
Scary,
said Alice. But Stanley was already running up the stairs.
Follow me,
he barked. It wasn't easy to get 4 dogs through the big school doors, but with a bit of thinking and a lot of pushing, they figured it out.
Alice was right. It was scary in there. Everywhere they looked was empty. Everywhere they listened was quiet.
What have they done with the kids?
Yep, Nessie. Gassy Jack sniffed the air.
They're near somewhere. I can smell them.
All the dogs took deep sniffs. The air in the school was thick with great smells. Socks, hamster poop, chalk, and something else. Something that made the dogs drool.
Does anyone else smell salami?
Asked Stanley. He could hardly believe his nose. They followed the trail, and what did they find? A room full of jackets and backpacks, all stuffed full of lunch. And what a lunch it was. Cheese sticks and cherry pies, chow mein, and chicken. The food in the school was divine, and all the dogs ate it up, every bit, even the pickles. And just when things couldn't get better, they did, because that's when the kids showed up. Those dogs were so happy, their whole bodies wet. They loved kids. Kids chased balls, they dug holes, they rolled in the grass. Kids were almost as good as dogs. So the dogs barked and the kids laughed, and there was more fun than a box full of puppies, right up until they noticed. The man with the broom. Stanley didn't understand people talk, but he could tell the man was saying, "Bad dogs." There was only one thing to do. "Run!" barked Stanley. He tore off down the hall. Behind him came his friends, and behind them came the kids.
They ran through a room of bouncy balls. They ran through a room of noisy things. They ran through a room full of wet stuff and into a room that had no way out. That's when a hand clamped down on Stanley's collar. Other hands grabbed his friends. Quick as a lick, they were sitting on cold, hard chairs. The only thing those dogs smelled now was trouble. "Uh-oh!" whispered Musty.
Who's that?
Stanley thought he knew.
The top dog,
he said.
She's not a dog,
said Alice.
Maybe not,
said Stanley.
but she's the top dog here.
They waited and waited and waited some more. The waiting was terrible.
I say we make a run for it,
said Gassy Jack.
Too late,
said Stanley.
Here she comes.
The top dog person loomed over them. She looked awfully important.
What's she gonna do?
Squealed Nesty. Slowly, the person bent down, lower, 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 until she was staring right at Stanley, nose to nose. She was the toppest dog they've ever seen. Then she spoke.
There now, my sweeties.
She crooned in a soft, gentle voice.
There, there, there.
And she patted Nesty's head. She patted the other dogs too. For a long time, the dogs just sat there, making happy, grunting sounds as their heads got plenty of pats. Finally, the top dog person stood up.
Off.
She said. The dogs hopped off the chairs.
Come.
She said. The dogs came. They followed her in a tidy dog line.
Go.
She said, and opened the big doors as if it were nothing. The dogs went. They stayed in their dog line for 2 whole blocks,
Wow!
said Nesty when they stopped,
That school was amazing! What an exciting place!
said Alice.
And just think, the kids go there every day.
And now we know why.
Said Gassy Jack.
Yup.
Said Stanley.
They go there to eat and run. Yep.
Agreed the others.
Eat and run. That's what the kids do in school.
Now that they'd figured it out, the dogs felt extremely clever. And later, when they went to the dog park, they were still talking about the school. And maybe they told a few friends about the eating and the running. And maybe there were other dogs who'd been wondering what kids do all day. All I know is when the school doors opened the next morning, the dogs were waiting.